Up to this morning, I had prepared a different homily, but after watching the news develop during the day, hearing the news all of last week, and remembering so many other kinds of world events, I thought maybe I wanted to say something about it. Along a quiet street in Pittsburgh, in a synagogue where people were gathered for worship, the naming of a child to celebrate their weekly worship, our nation once again found itself dealing with another act of senseless violence and hatred. Innocent people were cruelly murdered and injured while peacefully at prayer, talking to their God. Earlier in the week, a sick individual terrorized several prominent political figures and terrorized communities with potential destructive devices. For days, innocent people were living in fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. While not making the headlines, all over our country, every day, there are thousands of acts of violence committed. People are being killed in our streets. Homes and businesses are being violated and robbed. Drugs and alcohol are being abused. Gangs are growing. In the gospel tonight, we heard the cry of Bartimaeus, "Son of David, have pity on me." I think most of us want to cry out in our hearts in the midst of all of this, "Lord, have mercy on us." What is going on? Why, in a country with so many blessings, where we claim to be one nation under God, is there so much division, hatred, and violence? We have seen this violence in our schools, where innocent children and teachers were killed for no reason. We have seen it at a nightclub, where people were killed because of their sexual identity. We have seen violence at a concert where people were killed like animals from a perch high on a hotel overlooking the concert area. We have seen it in a church in the South where people of color were killed because they were black. We should be angry, and certainly we should be concerned, but we should also, I believe, be asking ourselves, why is this happening? In one sense, we need to recognize that our society has, in many ways, validated violence. The more graphic and gory the violence in a movie, the more popular and more often viewed is that film. There are so many of our children who spend hours upon hours playing games that glorify and reward with points acts of violence, the most kills, the bloodiest kills. Games that are bought and paid for by their parents. Young people in gangs are moved up in leadership in the gang by acts of violence. By taking out someone, they move up in rank. Hate groups teach and promote violence against races, against religions, against sexual identity, against immigrants. Our newspapers, our broadcast media, and our social media are filled page after page with stories of violence. In the midst of this never-ending acts of violence, we need to turn back, I believe, to basic Christian values. We need to recognize that we have all been created by one God, that we are brothers and sisters walking together in a very troubled and confused world. We cannot count on our politicians to change this violent world. We cannot count on laws and legislation to make us a more peaceful world. We must look into our own hearts and root out all kinds of hate and prejudice. We must go back, I believe, and this sounds very simplistic, but I believe it with all my heart and soul. We must go back to obeying the commandments of God, and especially living the commandments of to love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. I ask you to join with me right now in just a moment of silence as we pray for the victims in Pittsburgh, to all those who were terrorized last week, and all the victims of violence everywhere in the world. And after, I would ask us to open our hymn book to number 829 and sing together, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." And so let us pause just a few moments and remember those victims and pray for peace and love.